Hello, I'm Ann Minicozzi. I'm the owner, founder, and event facilitator of the Community Breakfast of the Main Line Undoing Racism Day, Embracing the Difference. I'm here today to talk with Diana Robertson, who is the president of the NAACP Main Line Branch, and we'll be talking about the history of the Community Breakfast, a popular community event held every September at Villanova University in the Villanova Room. And welcome, Diana.
Welcome, and I'm glad to be here today with you.
Same here. First, I guess we'll talk about how the community breakfast began, and I can talk about that part. Radnor Township held the Unity Breakfast beginning in 2000 through 2008, and every year Radnor Township would invite the entire community to come together in unity at the Villanova Room on campus at Villanova University and have a keynote speaker, song, and a delicious buffet breakfast, and the entire community would get together and get to see each other in this setting, make a friend, share hospitality. And then in 2008 was the last one that the township held, and because of the economy. And a few of us met at another event, which was the dedication of Bishop Allen Park, which was formerly Brook Street Park in Bryn Mawr, and we talked about how we wanted to have the event again, and we thought we would try it and see if people would come to it. So as a community organization, as volunteers, and as everyone who was going to attend would pay their own way for their meal, we held the first community breakfast in September of 2011. And we began that was with our small steering committee of volunteers. And our keynote speaker in 2011 was Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler, senior pastor of the Mother Bethel AME Church. And he gave our keynote address that year. And just to give the history of the couple of other breakfasts that we've had, in 2012 we had Patricia Coulter, who was president and CEO of the Urban League of Philadelphia, as our keynote speaker. She's since retired. And 2013 we had Reverend James Pollard, senior, PhD, pastor of Zion Baptist Church in Ardmore. And I feel like it was in 2013 when you joined in the steering committee.
Yes, I think that's about right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and Reverend Pollard was a great keynote speaker because as he was giving his talk, towards the end of the talk, he started to segue into a song lyrics, and then the choir came up and started singing the song that he was referring to, and then he had everyone standing up in the room. Mm-hmm. And he all had us hugging each other because we all deserved a hug, and we were all hugging each other. And that was a great community breakfast, 2013. And then in 2014, Dr. Hiro Nishikawa, the past president and current board member of the Japanese American Citizens League Philadelphia chapter, was our keynote speaker. And he spoke about the American concentration camps where some Japanese American citizens were interned, and talked about also his work in immigration reform as well. So those first few years we really followed the format of the township. But then given the situation, as there were a number of murders of unarmed African Americans by the police, we really started to feel as a steering committee that we needed to be able to let the attendees to the breakfast be in conversation with each other and be in dialogue with each other. And so that's when we changed the format really to a conversation where we would lead off and have questions that attendees could discuss, and then bring the conversation together. So in 2015, Radnor Middle School students were the hosts, Radnor Middle School, and the program that year was facilitated by Mrs. Esther Purnell, the principal of the middle school, and then also the assistant principal, Dr. Doug Kent. And in 2016, the Radnor High School facilitated the program, and the Radnor High School students really led the way in bringing the conversations together at the tables, and that was facilitated by Mr. David Stango, the assistant principal of the Radnor High School. I think overall what we really want to talk about too is the need for having the community breakfast. What do you have thoughts on that? Like, do you still see the need for gathering together as a community and having Undoing Racism Day?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I am happy about is that with basically starting off and just focusing on the Radnor community, but now expanding to the main line in general, other areas. And I think that's really important as well, because some of the things we talk about that goes on nationally, sometimes people don't realize how much it impacts the local areas, or there are things going on in the local areas that reflect some of the same things that might be going on, even if it's not to the same degree. And having that conversation is an opportunity to let people know how various individuals of a community feel.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good point that you make, because the way that we're having the community breakfast as volunteers, we were able to reach out, include Radnor, and then move beyond Radnor and include Lower Merion Township. And we're also trying to reach towards Haverford and Tredyffrin and Easttown. But we do have attendees who come from the greater Philadelphia area as well. And then I think the other thing that has happened, because we're doing this as volunteers, is we're including as many as we can, expanding on the Radnor Township's effort, people from many faith traditions, the various colleges, the high school and middle school, as we've said. We've had students come from other schools too. I know there have been students from Shipley and other schools as well, and Bryn Mawr College and Rosemont College. And then we are also extend this invitation to the business community. We do reach out to the business community, and we welcome everyone to attend. But given that we're volunteers, there's only so many contacts that we can make at a time. So we do welcome the business community to come. We are fairly well connected to civic organizations. But we also welcome any civic organizations who are not yet connected to the community breakfast to come to the breakfast. And then also, if someone from your organization wants to join the steering committee, we welcome that as well. And we do have a number of different organizations on the steering committee, so it's a nice diverse range. And then also, I guess, in terms of the community breakfast, Diana's very busy with the NAACP Main Line Branch all the time, and mostly are able to come to pretty much every meeting. But a lot of other members of the steering committee, because you all are so busy, if you can't make it to a meeting, it's really okay. I send out the minutes, and we all stay in communication and stay in touch with each other that way too. So if you're in an organization and you're busy, as many of us are, that's another way to be involved with the community breakfast. You don't have to come to every meeting. And we meet once a month, usually the second Wednesday of the month from 1 to 2, so we have short meetings. It's good for organizations to have short meetings.
Absolutely.
And then we stay in touch after that and plan the breakfast for the year. But I think another part that's important for our steering committee is just the fact that we get together and find out what's happening in each other's organizations, what issues are going on, and what events everyone's having. So we try to stay in touch with each other that way. So in case, I'm able to go to an event that Central Baptist Church in Wayne is holding, or the Unitarian Church, or Zion Baptist Church, or St. Thomas of Villanova Parish. We try to keep each other informed about the events. And I think that's an important part of the community breakfast, is this idea of being connected with each other and working together. We didn't even talk about our board that we have back here. How do we become a beloved community? This references Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., beloved community. And this board was at the 2016 community breakfast, and as people were exiting the breakfast last year, they wrote their contribution on the board in answer to how do we become a beloved community. And on our literature for the breakfast, we also reference how we're on our way to becoming a beloved community. It is very difficult to talk about racism, to talk about white privilege, to get into these conversations. And we have a welcoming atmosphere at the breakfast every year where you can come in, you have breakfast. Hopefully you sit with someone that you don't know, so you can make a friend, meet a couple new people, and share in these conversations. And I don't know many other places where you can sit down in the community and have interfaith, interracial, interethnic, interage conversations.
And I think that's important because one of the things that I think is key is communication and really hearing. So when someone says, talks about racism or discrimination or injustices, the way I express it or feel about it may be totally different from someone else because it's relative to your experiences. And so people don't always, in general, understand what that means or don't even see it as an issue unless we have that conversation. And then after the conversation, then talk about what action can we take to try to promote change.
Right.
So
right.
I think that's critical.
And also the fact of getting together at the community breakfast, we get to know each other a little bit, and so we begin to understand the perspectives that we're coming from, and try to find language that we can really talk to each other. But I think the other thing that I think happens is when people hear about this event, they really want to have a place where they can connect with people in friendship. And I think there's such a need for all of us to reach out to each other. It's not something, I mean, I'm a kind of person where I'm like my mom, I'm in the grocery store line and I start talking to people. But to sit down and, you know, you're chatting. But to be able to sit down and discuss this serious topic of undoing racism and how, as we move forward, are we going to live in harmony with each other as we move into the future, and also as our nation's population is becoming more diverse with the more immigration that we're having now. This has happened in our country's history in the past too, and we have to, you know, find the way forward where we can speak to each other and get to know each other and work things out together.
Right, and I think one of the things that breakfast does is listening to that. It represents a safe place. You know, your safe, you know, place to do that, and for people to really be able to feel free to speak and for others to listen. So, because I think the part of speaking about it, but then we're able to listen to each other. Because the one thing about undoing racism is first acknowledging that racism exists. And so if you can never resolve a problem if you refuse to admit there is a problem. And so once we can identify and say what we mean when we say that, because people tend to be defensive, you know, like, but to understand that some things are just because of history, you know, we have in different institutions the institutionalized racism that you might not even be aware of.
Well, we welcome everyone to come to the community breakfast of the Main Line Undoing Racism Day, Embracing the Difference. We hold it each year in September at Villanova University. The email address is thecommunitybreakfast@comcast.net for more information. And now we're going to turn to discussing the 2017 Community Breakfast. And the Community Breakfast this year will be on Wednesday, September 20th, from 7:30 until 9 a.m. at Villanova University in the Villanova Room. And the email address for registration information is thecommunitybreakfast@comcast.net. And Diana Robertson, the president of the NAACP Main Line Branch, is facilitating the program this year. So it is a co-presentation, as we've done every year with the NAACP organization. And Diana has put together the program this year. And so will you tell us about how you have structured the program and who will be attending?
Yes. Well, first, I'd like to say I'm excited that we have this opportunity to do this, and our branch is excited as well. Yes, in really discussing and talking about how we thought we might be even more effective than we have been, is to have a panel format. And so we have 3 panelists. Our panelists are Kiara Bradford Gray, who is the Chief Defender of the Philadelphia Defender Association and immediate former Chief Defender from Montgomery County, Chief Defender, the Defender Association. So she's one of our panelists. We have Dr. Candace Robertson James, who is currently the Director for the Masters of Public Health program and Assistant Professor at LaSalle University. And we have Hakeem Jones, who is Councilman for Norristown. And so we are excited about those 3 panelists, and they will all bring their own expertise in their field. And the topic or theme per se is the Constitution, United States Constitution. We the people standing on the Constitution and talking about our rights versus privilege. So that's our theme.
The Constitution's important in our daily lives,
Yes.
and there are some current issues that are occurring in our nation right now, where it will be really useful to talk about the Constitution and to have these distinguished panelists. I appreciate your putting the panel together too, because it's going to be a very good program. How long can we talk about the NAACP as a whole, various capacities, in terms of the history of the NAACP as an organization? That's been around in the country for a long time.
Since 1909. The NAACP was originally formed, and basically it was formed at that point in time as an urgency to deal with lynching. And so W.E.B. Du Bois and some others came together, and he actually came out of the Niagara movement and joined with others, and they started the NAACP in 1909. It was actually chartered in New York. Okay. So each year there's an annual meeting in February in New York.
Oh, okay.
And they have their annual meeting, and so it's open to the entire membership, and different individuals will come to that meeting. On a more local level, the Main Line Branch began in 1930. And many of you know the late Robert Wright, who was very instrumental with the early years of the Main Line Branch. And I believe a lot of that dealt around housing and education. So those areas, the national organization has always dealt with the injustices in housing, education, the political, civic engagement, voting, big time on voting, registration, getting out the vote, and other criminal, the criminal justice entity, and economic development, all those areas are areas where you will find many injustices that happen. And so, and a lot of these areas are their policies or constitutional laws, either by the U.S. Constitution or the Pennsylvania state constitution as well.
So not just national issues, but also on the state level.
Right. So we have federal and state, and some of the constitutional amendments that have been put in place actually give an overall policy as to how things should run, but they also allow the state to be very specific, and so therefore you have different states with different laws and policies on these same areas. So
now you were telling me earlier how you first became involved with the NAACP Main Line Branch,
right,
and how many years you've been involved.
Right. So just thinking about that when you asked that question, so I've actually been involved with the Main Line Branch for 31 years.
So I made you tired when I asked you that question.
So 31 years, and I actually, I started because my church is Zion Baptist Church in Ardmore. So that was my connection to the Main Line. Okay. And one of our longtime members, Barbara Butler, who actually at the time back in '86 was the youth advisor. So there's the we have what we call the adult portion, and we have the youth and college division, which focuses on our youth and the units in college. And she was the advisor, and at that particular time, I was actually the youth director at Zion. And so she came to church service one day, and we met. And I think it was a Sunday we actually had a youth program. It was a youth Sunday.
So she could see you in action.
Right. So little did I know that right after that she was going to ask me to be her assistant youth advisor. And I'm thinking like, what? You know, but when I thought about it, because I had, even though I wasn't a member at that time, I was very familiar with NAACP and the activism and all of that. And so, you know, when I asked her some more about what was the expectation, she told me. And I thought, you know, okay, why not? And it was a segue then into the participating in the adult branch. And early on, I actually became legal redress chair and became involved, been active ever since. So then became later on, I was actually president and for a term in, no, 2 terms in 2000, and then became president again, and now I'm serving my 3rd term now as we speak. So.
And you were saying that there are meetings that you go to every February, but there's a conference that you go to too?
So that's the annual meeting, but we have the National Convention, which is every July. So I've just been, that was actually in Baltimore this year. The national office is actually based out of Baltimore, Maryland. And so we had this year the convention was in Baltimore. And I did attend that. That was towards the end of July. And I did attend that convention. And what's exciting about going to the convention is that people from literally all across the country come to the convention. And it's an opportunity to do a couple of things. It's an opportunity to hear from our leadership as to their vision, where they see us now, and we're giving direction as to how they see us moving forward.
And what kind of issues you might want to work on for that coming year.
Absolutely. And we actually vote on resolutions that actually become then the policies for the next year. And so you get to see and hear firsthand and get to meet national staff, those who are doing that work. And so this year, you know, there's a big piece on education, criminal justice always, and civic engagement. So I would say those were the 3 hot topics.
That sounds almost like the panelists that you've
Yes,
put together.
yes,
Very,
yes.
very similar.
You're right. So when we talk
Those
about
areas.
that, because sometimes people don't think about it as understanding that policies and the way things are structured very often are based on the Constitution. And so we don't always, and even if we know that, we don't always know what aspects of the Constitution and how we may continually need to enforce certain things that are constitutional law. And that's why voting is so extremely important, because when we have those challenges, it is the Supreme Court justices who make those final decisions. And that's why it is extremely important to vote, not just in presidential years, also for our local legislators who actually put together the laws, and to understand, kind of remind us of the basic tenements of government, the structure of government in the with the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. So I think, sometimes we've had that in school a long time ago, and we kind of forget. And so I think it's nice to be reminded of the Civics 101 and dealing with governmental structure and really understanding why it is so important as to who our leadership is.
Right. So it's going to be a good learning experience at the breakfast on September 20th. But I wanted to ask you also, especially for people who are watching this program, how do you join the NAACP? And if you join, do you get a newsletter or like some information so you stay in touch with what issues that you're exploring for the current year?
Right.
Looking forward.
Yes, we definitely always are promoting membership. For adult membership, it's $30 a year. You can do a life membership and take care of it at once, or $750, but then your membership for life. And you can do that in increments of $75 a year as well. And then we have our youth, which we encourage parents and adults to get a membership for your children or grandchildren, and that's
right,
$10.
Even for a birthday present or something.
Right.
$10, that's great.
Absolutely. You can do the $15 with the Crisis magazine, but if you don't want to do that, just do the $10, and it will then you are a member. You'll get connected. We'll contact you. We now have Facebook. So, and this is where bringing our young people in, our young adults into the branch has been extremely helpful, because there are just some things we don't do real well. But the younger generation is very much into social media. And so we do have Facebook, and you can go right on there for NAACP Main Line Branch. And we'll come up, and we've been posting our activities. We have our meetings once a month. Usually it is the first Tuesday of the month, where we meet at the Bryn Mawr Community Center, which is adjacent to the Ludington Library. But we will definitely, we've done a lot better with communicating and getting out emails and providing information to the local churches, and just using other entities to get out the word and information.
Well, we'll have literature about the NAACP at the breakfast.
Yes.
If someone's going to mail in a membership, where would they mail that to?
You can mail it to P.O. Box 18955, Philadelphia, PA 19119. You could, and I'm once again Diana Robertson, president of the branch. But if you are affiliated with folks who are members, we can get you the card. We can get you I can email you information. And so we definitely, with all that is going on, with all of the struggles, that we still need to be very active, and we need bodies to do that.
Right.
And so once again, yes, if you can't always make the meetings, that's fine. We do our committee work. The structure is the committee work, and we do that in the course of the month. But we need bodies to do the work.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we're very excited to be presenting together the community breakfast of the Main Line Undoing Racism Day, Embracing the Difference, September 20th, 2017, 7:30 to 9 in the morning at Villanova University. And the email is thecommunitybreakfast@comcast.net. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you soon at the Community Breakfast.